Hello and welcome back. Shinny says hello too, don't you, Papa? Oh, thank you, Poopy. Mwah. Um, I don't know. This was going to be like a couple things, but something I heard at the gym yesterday just sort of, um, I don't know, stuck in my craw. I guess you could. Is the light better this side? Better one, better two, better one. I'm kind of here because he's on that leg. 3/4 it a little bit more. Looks more regal. Anyway, so down there doing ab stuff, and I heard these guys talking, and that is almost inevitably a situation that I don't that I don't want to be in. Hearing these other guys, especially at the gym, talking, and one of them said that just ridiculous piece of crap from these ridiculous crap new Batman movies and Justice League crap movies and crappity BS crap steaks with Frank Miller sauce that should have been thrown out in the mid 90s when that crap was played out enough as it was. That whole, you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And I hate that. I hate that just angsty, you probably think that your haircut's interesting and man, you're just such a guy and everything's awesome and I'm badass because I'm going to tell you how badass I am. And grr, everything's dark and gritty. Grr, Frank Miller. Yeah. Crap. I was trying to sort of radio edit myself in there because when I was thinking this in my head, there was a lot more expletives. Um, but that sort of combines something else I wanted to talk about with this too. But it's just, I'm tired of sort of being mired in and wading through this sort of just polluted pseudo male bullshit. Oh God, I said the bad word. I'm not I'm not monetized anyways. I'm not super worried about being demonetized at this point. Um, but just that polluted, not even childish. I mean, it's adolescent at best, but still even like poison, polluted, diseased adolescent thinking of you got to be a badass, and that sort of anti-hero is always the best, cool sort of thing. Quite frankly, it's not. It's good in small doses when done well, and is very rarely done well. I mean, I had, for example, what was it, that Altered Carbon show on Netflix? I had kind of high hopes for that because I'm like, oh, they're exchanging bodies and doing all this other stuff. This might get into some sort of consciousness talk, and it wasn't. It was just tropey, angry anti-hero who's, gosh, got a heart of gold. Who knew? Oh no! Oh, but he's still a super badass, the biggest badass ever. And grr, isn't he angry? And grr, he's drinking and doing drugs or screwing some woman and this, and oh, everything's so hard and grr, but I'm a badass and I care about you. Bullshit. It's crap. It's just the same shit again and again. It's like everything got stuck in that sort of 90s comic book thing and never got out of it again. And that same thing where this is why I don't think Christopher Nolan really hit any marks with Batman because of shit like that. You either die a hero, you live long enough to be a villain. No, no. I mean, ultimately, like if you make a really good Batman story, like yeah, there's going to be angsty stuff and everything, and because that he is Dark Knight, and he's working through those demons and all this other stuff like that. But essentially, there should be some quality of sort of hope and kind of light with it, and that just plays right into the I'm 15 and I think that bullshit like this is badass, polluted, diseased nonsense. And where this ties into something else I wanted to talk about is that if you ended up doing this, and people did. Um, everything, but and then people are doing things not because it's generally the right thing to do or what they should be doing, or it will help them in some sort of alchemical spiritual path, but they're doing it because they're going to get the jackpot when they get to heaven. I forget if was it Eddie Izzard or Patton Oswalt were talking about the sky cake. People, I put in my money in doing good things there, and then when I go to heaven I get my sky cake. And that's not actual real being a good person. Being a good person, being a spiritual person, being someone, um, that people present themselves as, but doing it for some sort of profit makes you a business person. It doesn't make you a good person. And everyone's guilty of it in some way or another. I've done it. I don't know anyone. I told people before, it's like I've never met anyone who is, awakened to their sort of bodhisattva, immortal, perfect, all chakras open, this sweet smelling aura. I've never met anyone who's kind of got that thing except maybe this one right here. Um, so everyone has those sort of spectrums of behaviors where they kind of go from one to the other, and they kind of stop and think, kind of, what am I going to get out of this? Or maybe this is the right thing to do, but I don't feel like I want to do it because of the person or the circumstances involved, be it at work or out in the community, or just like, yeah, I could do this, but I don't know that person, so maybe I don't feel comfortable with doing that, because we live in a society where you might try and help someone and they might just stab you in the chest and take a kidney or something like that. So sometimes people get a little mercenary in some of the things that they do, but to sit there and talk about how good you are of a person, and I've seen this time and time again, and most of it I've seen with Christians, because I mean I live in 21st century, United States, in, was it Northeast Ohio? Forgot where I was for a second. So it's kind of what's here. But a lot of people are, well, I do this and I do that, and they go through this list like they're talking about a spreadsheet. And then they talk about, how they're a good person. First of all, if you have to tell someone you're a good person, you're on a little shaky ground anyway. Your actions and your behavior and your intent should be a little more apparent. So you have to tell someone something all the time. Oh, I'm a good person, or I'm a this, or I'm a that. Chances are you're on shaky ground with that uh, pronouncement. If you got to pronounce it, in some sort of grand, effective way, you're maybe not doing it that much. Badasses do that all the time. Bullies and shit like that. People are like, I'll beat you at basketball. I'll beat you up. I'll do this. I'll do that, or anything, because they're not going to, or they're afraid to, or they know that they're deficient in some way, so they have to talk about it a lot because they are deficient in it, and they want to hide the fact they're deficient in it. It could be bullies, could be playing ball in the schoolyard, could be borderlines, could be whatever, you know, and people talking about how good they are in terms of some sort of, spiritual context or something along those lines. So, if you have to die a hero, oh no, I've died, or you become a villain, you're probably not that good of a person to begin with. And it's an almost literal sense. You get that sort of thing where people who have passed sometimes get canonized when they kind of shouldn't. So, some of the crappier parts of your life or personality get kind of whitewashed over. Um, or, again, you live long enough and all the truth comes out a little bit more. So, I don't know. It's just that's always been something that's bothered me a lot, is seeing being a good person, seeing being a spiritual person or realized person or anything along those lines. There we go. Is an if this then that relationship with other people and the universe and whatever sort of spiritual power that you go to or anything along those lines. Um, you know, I'm going to get into heaven because I made sure I tithe my 10% and I voted for the right people and I wear the right clothes and I do this and all that. Yeah, but your heart and your mind are diseased little, nubs. Your mind is got this circular reasoning, and there are parts that are atrophied from it because you're not actually practicing what you preach. You're not actually looking at anything. Your subconscious is probably just a horror show, and then your heart's probably this shriveled little raisin in your chest, and spiritually speaking, because you're not doing it for the good reasons. You're not doing it. And part of this, I mean, I teach internal martial arts, and there's always that part about the intent, and that intent means a lot. This is stuff. I mean, it comes up in everything. It comes up in even like legal trials and things like that. It's really hard to prove. But I mean, I've seen it where it's, you know, they've done, if criminal A, so to speak, has done X, Y, and Z, this shows that they intended to do this crime from the beginning. They're saying, oh, well, it was just this opportunity or something came up or they were forced to do it. But, their receipts from 2 months ago show that they were planning and setting this up before. So it shows the intent. And it's the same thing with people acting good, quote unquote, or well, or as, they like to pretend that they do. Well, yeah, you tell me you're this type of person, but then again, you have shown time and time again, when push comes to shove, when it was really time to put up or shut up, you fell through. You didn't prove it, and it's that prove it part, that really kind of matters. And that idea of, why are you really doing what you're doing? I actually have almost more respect for someone who does something because, like, yeah, I'm getting something out of this, versus someone who is bullshitting about it. It might be that that person A who's like, yeah, I'm doing this because I get something out of it. I mean, that might not be necessarily a good thing that they're doing or a good reason for why they're doing it. They might not necessarily be a good person, but I have more respect for that sort of thing, that intent, that sort of, honesty. It was like, yeah, it's like I'm not doing this to be a good person. I'm not doing this because I'm trying to, whatever sort of bullshit other people are doing. I'm doing this because I'm getting something out of it. I mean, I am tired of, given my job, well, at least I didn't fill in the blank. It's like, oh, well, you broke a bunch of windows and you spit blood in our face and did all this other stuff, but at least they didn't do that. It was like they committed 6 felonies. You're not giving them any sort of thing for it, and they assaulted like 3 people, but at least they did. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of that at least sort of thing. I respect, and I'm completely cool with people looking at silver linings sort of thing, but when that at least starts creeping in there, it really starts kind of like sandpaper on my back anymore. I've been sort of burned out from my job with that. Um, but I do have, I not respect as a person, maybe respect as in terms of the actions and the intent and the honesty with it. Maybe, I'm not going to respect a person who actively does shitty things at all, because you're actively doing shitty things. You don't have the right to do it. Maybe you've been hurt or traumatized or something like that to begin with. Maybe there's something that is physically, chemically wrong in the brain or something like that. Okay, so there are reasons for doing this, but that doesn't give you a right. That doesn't give you an excuse. And in this day and age of over diagnoses or something like that, if you've been diagnosed with something and you choose to still act like an asshole, you still choose to act in ways that aren't trying to work on mitigating that, you're making a choice. If you've been traumatized before, and you go and do things that are actively sort of hurting people, or being shitty to people, you know you're being shitty. Just because you've been hurt doesn't mean you have the right to hurt somebody else. It's the same thing with this goodness as a transaction. You think that because your narrow worldview of what is right and wrong, or what you want to portray as right and wrong is a certain way, then that gives you the right to act or think or anything else. Like, no, no. I mean, I've heard in a couple places the idea of all these different beliefs, which would include materialist reductionist scientists, by the way, and gradualists in with this, as well as different religions. I'm not talking about spirituality, I'm talking about man made religions that exist for a purpose of someone's getting power. That's really what it kind of comes down to a lot of things. Someone wants power in some way, and then they're going to manipulate people and however they want for that as well. And that includes religion with that, and Tai Chi and yoga in certain degrees. They're all windows of this building, and that building is looking out into reality. So maybe you try and hit a lot of windows, so you start getting a lot of different sort of varying perspectives, and you start getting a somewhat more complete picture of reality is. But it's not till you get rid of those windows and look out into reality, is it true, or you're ever going to get the true sense of what it is. And then the more hard and fast people stick to only one very narrow thing, they almost brick themselves off to the other possibilities. They shut the door behind them, throw away the key, and stare out this one window, thinking that somehow represents all of reality. It's Plato's allegory of the cave. The guy who actually sees what true things are comes back to try and tell people that what they're seeing is just these forms that don't really exist, and they kill him for it. So you try and see more things, and then the more things you get, the more you're sort of like, wow, I didn't really know what the hell I was talking about to begin with. But people don't do that because people want to be right, and people want to be seen as a certain thing, and they'll have those blinders up, put themselves on these pedestals, and you know basically play king of the hill on that pedestal, where any sort of truth or anyone else who's trying to be like, well, what about, I mean, even if they're doing it in an assertive way, in a healthy way, in a therapeutic way, they're hitting them with that damn stick. Say, get the hell off of my pedestal. You're pulling me down. You're pulling me down. And all the while, their own subconscious and the actual truth of things, the reality of things are coming out, leaking out of them like vines, pulling them down anyway too. So it's just I get twitchy half the time when I get in the gym anyway, because it's just dude bros and shit talking about nonsense and crap half the time anyway. And then I just heard that, and that just was like, are you fucking kidding me? Uh, maybe I would have bought into that when I was a 15-year-old with, severely depressed and panic attacks and really angry about fucking everything ever. Maybe I would have bought into that, but I've worked really hard in the past years to evolve. I realized that at that time I was really unhappy. I was really depressed. I was really angry. I wasn't getting anywhere. It wasn't helping me. It was making things worse. One of the reasons I probably went bald prematurely, besides genetics, was the fact that, I mean, I didn't know how to take care of curly hair either. But I mean, I was severely depressed. I was having panic attacks all the time and migraines, and I was really, really fucking pissed off for a long time. But I didn't see that, and there were times where I thought that, okay, this was reality. This was the way I was going to be. This is the way things are. And to a certain extent, again, at 15, 16, 17, you think, well, this is it. I've got it figured out. I know. You don't know shit. And quite frankly, you can be 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 150 years old, but if you've never evolved past that 13, 15, 17-year-old you still don't know shit either. I don't care how much experience that you've got in there. If you're still thinking like you did when you were 15, you didn't learn shit. You didn't learn a goddamn thing. So your experience is almost null and void because you haven't evolved. You're still dis-ease. In fact, adding decades and decades on top of a foundation that's built on your 15-year-old self is almost definitively diseased. There's a reason if you read the Harry Potter books that was it Order of the Phoenix, you want to smack the crap out of Harry the entire damn book. There's a reason why all that stuff came out with his dad being an asshole in the fifth book. They're 15 at that point in time. 15 is like the worst year to be a teenager. At least it is for boys. And it doesn't really get any better for a couple years after that. I mean but that's really sort of like a cresting year of shit in that middling addled little brain that you got forming in there. But people don't move past that. They still go on thinking that what they even like 21, you start getting able to drink and doing all this other stupid shit. People don't evolve past that, and so you get this almost rampant sort of societal personality disorder that puts up every thinking error they possibly can, including grandiosity, including transferring the guilt and transferring the stuff onto other people. They have the thinking error after thinking error after thinking error, blaming everyone else for everything that's ever happened in their life, except the one person who needs to take a look at what the fuck is going on in their lives and start making some changes internally, and that's themselves. Everything is everyone else's fault because everyone's a fucking martyr. Everyone wants to be a martyr. Everyone wants to be a victim. And they don't want to sit there and be like, all right, yeah, I fucked up. So how do I change this? How do I move on from this? How do I get better? How do I do something else? Where do I go from things? Because if you start turning around and making it everyone else's fault for shit that's gone on in your life, then you don't have to change, do you? It's everyone else. And oh no, isn't everything so difficult that the world is against you? I've become the villain when I should be the hero. Sorry, I got a text. A couple texts. Uh, Sorry. I've become, and that to me what it is to me that's what that cycle means, is that you got that idea that you're this good person and you're doing all this stuff right, but oh, everyone's against you and everything's so hard, you can't get anything done because everyone else is such an asshole and everyone else is stupid and everyone else is this, that, and the other thing, so I'm just like the bad guy because everyone's against me. Not like, Richard III, therefore, if I cannot prove a lover to entertain these fair, well-spoken days, I'm determined to prove a villain and hate the idle pleasures of these days. At least the guy admitted it. I know he used it at least after I just ranted about it for who knows how many minutes before. But again, it goes back to, do a recall to what I was talking about, where he owned it. All the other psychopathic, sociopathic crap that he did, the other thinking errors and stuff like that, you got to respect that he owned it to a certain extent with it. And I know it's a play, it's fiction, and all that. But that's the point of fiction and science fiction and fantasy and poetry and plays and all that other stuff. Use another sort of Shakespeare illusion to hold the mirror as up to reality, and give you a chance to, take a look at yourself and make a change. There's some Michael Jackson thrown in with the Shakespeare there. Um, I mean, as cheesy as it is, I mean, man in the mirror is right. You got to do it yourself. You can't expect other people to change for you. If they care about you, they'll take a look at their behaviors and then they'll, see what might be harmful to somebody else that they care about. But you can't expect that, and you can't really make anyone do that. I learned from my I'm going to make things right and for justice that I used to do when I worked at Borders that screwed me over, potentially, well, obviously not a career because there is no Borders anymore, but it screwed me out of potential like promotions and other stuff like that, put me under a certain amount of microscope because I basically looked like I was a troublemaker. What, but not the shinny, but not the shinny. I always thought it was a good sign that dogs, cats, and like little babies sort of liked me. But everything's better with a pug, isn't it? Yes. Mm. I would say there needs to be more pugs, like people give more people more pugs, but I don't trust people with pugs because people can't even be bothered by taking care of themselves. People can't even wear matching socks anymore. We can't wear matching socks. We can't wear our pants right. We can't wear our shirts right. We can't wear hats right. Wear Crocs. And it was like, no, no, only pugs to the right people. And then a lot of pugs to the right people, right? Sorry, got sidetracked by the pug. But to me, that's what it goes back to. It's what's the intent, and people being able to actually make some sort of concerted effort. No, again, no one's going to be perfect. Not there's more than 7 billion people in the world, and it's unrealistic to say that even 1% or something like that is going to reach some sort of awakening to their enlightened state, some sort of bodhisattva Buddhahood or Christ-like Gnostic awakening or anything like that. And it's irresponsible as a person to expect anyone to do that. You can't. I tell this to the kids all the time. You cannot expect other people or circumstances or jobs or bosses or whatever like that to change for you. You've got to do what you can to adapt to the situation. Stay authentic, you know, but adapt. You have to, but then there's also the point where you have to kind of stick to your guns on what it is that you believe too. And if you talk about it more than you do it, you're not sticking to your guns. You're not being maybe who or what you thought you were or are or anything else like that. You're kind of a dick. So this isn't directed at any one person. I mean, it was inspired by the what I overheard at the gym. It's not directed at any one person. It's just a general sort of a general sort of state of affairs and behaviors and things that I've noticed for a long time. I've had these conversations with many people over the years about, it's like, well, you're just doing this, you're just being nice to me because you think you're going to get something out of it. And even if that I'm going to go to heaven because I'm a good Christian or what have you, is still you think you're getting something out of it. That's still a transaction. So, I think I'm gonna put this in an awareness playlist and everything because that's what it goes to. It goes into awareness. It goes into people paying attention to what they're doing, how they're doing it, which is almost more important, and why. No one asks why. I think why is one of the most important words in the English language, and it's varying translations to things in other languages too. Critical thinking is something that is desperately needed and is desperately useful. When I teach Tai Chi, I ask people about feedback all the time. When I used to do tournaments, I would ask people, the judges and stuff, for feedback. When I judge tournaments now, I write down notes in each person, in each category, in each thing that I go to in case someone asks for feedback. In the several years I've been judging now, I mean, I don't do a ton of tournaments. I've done, two or three different ones, but there's one I've done every year for several years now. Like one person, maybe two, has asked me for any sort of feedback. No, that's an exaggeration, but I mean the ratio between competitors and people actually asking for feedback is ridiculous. No one wants feedback, and then they're going to be like, "Well, you didn't give me the score I wanted, and he's a dick, he's an asshole." Like, your Tai Chi wasn't what it is, I mean, I went to tournaments where I bombed. I went to tournaments where I bombed bad. And that's part of the learning process. That's sort of part of the function and the of it. I mean, to me, I never liked competing in tournaments. I don't like being tested. I don't like tests. I didn't perform well in tests. I always got good grades, but I hated tests. I got horrible test anxiety. To me, a tournament's a test. I like the training leading up to it because it was very intensive in a lot of ways, not just the forms for it or the techniques if you're doing like I did like push hands or fighting or something like that. Um, but even the principles and getting the fundamentals more correct in a very intensive sort of way. I enjoyed the actual testing, the actual thing. I didn't enjoy. But there are people who do it, and sometimes they go into internals because anymore there's not a whole lot of people doing it. And they just rack up medal after medal after medal just because they're in a lot of stuff. I've seen people who are doing masters demos, and they're sitting there and they're getting in the ring and fighting, and then they're doing uh, routines for empty hands or weapons. I'm like, no, no. If you're doing masters demos, you get your ass in a chair and you start judging, or you sit your ass on the bleacher and you be a coach. If you have students there, or you do the thing, you walk around glad hand and leave. You don't sit there and do a master's demo and then compete at the same point in time. No, that's pure fucking ego. And that's really what it's talking about. Is there's arrogance and there's ego and there's the elegance and propriety is not quite the word I'm looking for, but the sort of humility. I mean, humility is replaced with hubris, but the thing is like hubris, in myths again was almost more respectful because people would stand on the mountain in front of the storm and be like, yeah, yeah, I'm doing this. And I you told me not to, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know better. I'm going to do this because you can't stop me. Now anymore is just sort of like, I had to do this because I'm so set upon by you or by the family or by my coworker or by these people or the world or I don't know why this gets put on me. I'm such a martyr. And it's like, no, you're bringing a lot of this on yourself. Yeah, shit's hard. And yeah, sometimes, I shouldn't say sometimes, and yeah, a lot of times, competence is rewarded with bullshit. Competence and functionality and trying to genuinely be a good person, a lot of times, especially in an employment context, is more often than not rewarded with being dumped on. I don't know how many times in my various jobs and careers and stuff that I've done where, I showed competence. And then it was just like, oh, well, we don't actually have to spend any thought or effort or money or resources on fixing a problem. We'll just throw John at it and we'll just get by. It's happened to me many, many times in several places I've worked at. And then people pat themselves on the kind of set for that. A lot of times people aren't apt to meet up with that, and sometimes it's because they tried and got beaten down from it. Emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, sort of beaten down from it. Because they were sort of used as a bandage, or they were ignored, or I've seen it where I've said something. I'm like, it's going to be X, Y, and Z. This is going to be what's going to happen. Here are functional ways that we can help fix it, and you can actually see it going in the person's ear, coming out. I mean, you can almost physically see it. and just is disheartening. And yeah, sometimes the way things are structured in society and civilization as it is now, and at least I'm talking about the sort of Western civilization in the 21st century, as it were, does get that way. Perseverance is a thing that is very difficult. That mental toughness to be able to keep going through these things sometimes is very difficult, and you need breaks from it and everything like that. But then you also have that sort of treat yourself culture where it's like, man, man, I did like something today, so I'm going to treat myself. And well, you get to work, if we go the 9 to 5 sort of route. Wow, it's like 11 and I did 2 things that I was supposed to do today. I'm going to treat myself, but I'm just going to kind of fuck off for the rest of the day. Well, you have 6 more things that you're supposed to do. And then it ends up that, Steve 2 cubicles over or something like that has to pick up the slack for the 2 things because, man, you treated yourself. You earned that thing that you did that laid something at somebody else's feet because, you rewarded yourself for doing your job, doing what you're expected to do. That's what if you look at like American football players or something like that. They make a play. They tackle a guy that they were supposed to tackle. They make a touchdown if they're a wide receiver or running back when they were, 2 yards away from the goal line or something like that. And they're sitting in there and dancing and cheering and hooping and hollering and beating their chest and doing backflips and front flips and going inside and out different realities or any other sort of thing like that. I'm like, it's just what you're supposed to do. Yeah, okay, like you play hard and you did this thing, reward, and it's like you get a yeah in there too. Okay, cool, I can understand that. But you're doing all this ridiculous crap for something that you're supposed to do. If you're on the defense and the guy's running at you with the ball and you tackle him, you don't sit there and do like a beast man, you unbound your chest and jump up and down and people will step in here. It's like that's what you're supposed to do. And people want there's a good reward. Mm-hmm. Oh, what a good reward. Thank you. People want rewards, which is why I said it. People want to be rewarded in the most grandiose way for the minimum amount of thing. They want 100% of reward for 30% effort and no manageable intent. So, well, I kind of went a lot of rails and derailed off of those rails. So I mean, again, it was the goodness or the holiness or something as a transaction is false. Review intent, critical thinking. Practice what it is you say. And again, it's that old thing, like those who talk don't know, those who know don't talk. And I'm still working on me, which is why I'm sitting here talking for 100 million hours. So I'm still working on it. I'm not perfect. I'm not remotely close. Um, but I'm not sitting here. I am kind of sitting here telling people what to do if you want to see the thing of it. You know, but I'm practicing this. I'm putting it out. I'm not doing anything that I'm not saying anything that I'm not genuinely attempting, you know, throughout my life. And again, there are days where I ain't got it. There are days that I feel like I got it, but it just ain't working. And there are days where it's just sort of like I got it for a little bit and then it's drained out. And that's natural. Like no one's going to be 100% 100% of the time. And it's ridiculously irrational to expect that. But where's the effort? Where's the intent? Where's the mindset? Where's the heart set on doing what you're going to do and how you're going to do it? And why? Why? Critical thinking. Where's your heart? Where's your soul? Where's your thought process? Who are you blaming for what and why? Why again? You know, and for God's sakes, get out of that 90s gritty fucking bullshit. Frank Miller is overrated. They put out some stuff that I liked and read and everything, and there's some things that I think are him satiring him later on that I thought, good on you for that, if I'm correct in that. But honestly, that everything's suffering, everything's just dark, and everything sucks, and everyone's just this piece of shit looking for everything, and even someone who's a good person has to be this all the time, like the way Batman got turned into is just it's fucking exhausting, and I'm tired of it. You know, that's I mean that's why it's like some stuff it's cool. Like I miss sometimes in comic book stuff that's just utterly ridiculous. Grant Morrison put in ninja man bats in the Batman, and I love that because it's ridiculous. Because you're not taking yourself as seriously at that point in time. Some of these, shows, was that Supernatural or something like that. I mean, I couldn't watch it anymore after like 3.5 seasons because I'm sick and goddamn tired of pseudo Christian apocrypha and everything's angels and demons have this very tiny little narrow view of what that shit is. And they did that with the Constantine show, and Constantine was supposed to be this mage and magic and this bigger context, and it went right back into fucking angels and goddamn demons. This pseudo, whitewashed apocrypha fucking nonsense. And of course, everyone's got to be gritty and dark and drink and smoke and this, that, and the other thing. But I do have to give Supernatural credit. There's a lot of things they do that I've seen on like Tumblr or something like that where they're not taking themselves as seriously in a lot of things. And people got to do that. I mean, yeah, there are times to take things very, very seriously, and there are times to take nothing seriously, and most everything else is kind of in between. Stick to yin, no yang, stick to yin sort of thing. And sometimes you need to be able to look at yourself and be like, oops, sorry, my bad. Make fun of yourself a little bit, not to the point where it's really a function of some sort of horrible self-esteem or something like that. But you need a little bit of self-effacement once in a while. Keep you honest. Keep you away from that dark, gritty bullshit, thinking yourself some hero transforming into a villain because the world's against you. Or, get yourself out of the mindset of, well, if I do this, I'm going to get my reward and God will like me. Shut up. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Do it because, you know, even if you don't get a reward from it, just do it because, what's your instinct saying? What's your heart saying? It's not always got to be about how you profit from something. It's not always got to be about everything is shitty and suffering. And even Buddhism, which is one of the Four Noble Truths and tenets, is the world is suffering, doesn't mean you got to make it fucking worse for yourself. Stop making your own suffering fucking worse. And for God's sakes, wear socks that fucking match.